Hello and welcome to Do Human Work, the podcast that looks at the future of cybersecurity through the lens of AI. I am your host, Nate Burke, CMO at 70i, and I am joined, as always, by...
Hi, Lior Div, co-founder, CEO.
Today, we have a fascinating guest who bridges the worlds of cyber risk management, education, and AI governance. Our guest is Dirce Hernandez, who brings over 17 years of experience spanning information security, cyber threat risk management, and IT audit across Texas state government, higher education, and financial services. He currently works as a senior cybersecurity GRC manager, is an adjunct professor teaching organizational leadership and cybersecurity at several universities, and contributed to the development of the new CCSK certification V5 exam. His experience includes previous roles at organizations like USAA, Wells Fargo, University of Texas at Brownsville, and TXDOT. Most recently, he's been making waves advocating for responsible AI governance in higher education with his article, Bridging AI Innovation with AI Governance, appearing in Higher Ed Risk magazine this summer. Welcome to Do Human Work.
Thank you for having me.
So you have had a unique journey from state government to financial services, and now as a GRC leader, while also being directly involved in education. So what drew you to focus on the governance side of AI, especially in the context of both enterprise and in education?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think the biggest thing was that tech alone couldn't solve the problems, right? And it takes really like that, kind of put yourself out, be outward facing and outward looking instead of being, having like a tunnel vision based on all the operational day-to-day work that we do from a tech perspective. So that's where I started thinking about what other things can I bring to the table to solve those challenges from a tech perspective. And that's where AI governance and governance as a whole started to kind of, be part of my, ecosystem and my day-to-day operations.
Yeah, it will be great for kind of our audience if you can elaborate a little bit about what is it governance, and because I'm not sure that everybody.
That's a really good point. I don't think we defined our term. So
Yes.
let's talk about what do we even mean by
Governance.
of AI governance and governance in general. Like when we just throw that word out there, what does it mean?
So governance, what that means is having the guardrails, right? Having the line of sight from a documentation perspective, from a direction perspective, to actually make sense what you're doing, what the organization is doing from a day-to-day, not only from a strategic perspective, but also from just all nomenclature, inclusivity perspective, to lead the organization where they want to be in regards to the environment that they're operating in.
Yeah, it's fascinating because AI is basically we are treating it as it here for many years, but basically it's like past 2 years, that's it.
AI has been around for a long time, right? ML and the technologies in cybersecurity space. Obviously, 7AI, that's your space from offensive security, SOC alerting and triaging. So now more people are actually using it on a day-to-day personal perspective to, paraphrase or summarize something that they want for school or something like that. So it's really just come full circle that everyone needs and is aware of what AI is, and now we just incorporate it in our professions in cybersecurity.
It's fascinating. So if it was here for so many years, so why now? What kind of the trigger of starting to shape it?
I mean, definitely media exposure, right? The media exposure, the inclusivity of all these big players like Meta, Instagram, the social media craze, using AI into their algorithms. We just saw it happen with TikTok. They just sold their majority stakeholder to Oracle, right, from the algorithm perspective. So I think that kind of came to a head, right? And then just more and more people were using AI, right? We're using Siri, we're using digital assistants, personal assistants. So, I mean, from that perspective, it's, all over the map, right? Same thing with the internet. Yeah. Everyone's using the internet at home. We are cybersecurity operators. We work through the internet, protecting the internet in our organizations, from attackers attacking our systems internally. It's just, par for the course for technology that's in there in the environment embedded with our day-to-day operations.
Yeah, I think that when we're zooming in, I think that the big organization enterprises started kind of to embrace AI in a different way. And in a way that actually almost touch every aspect of the business. Something that was not like necessarily like true, let's say, a few years ago.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's just been more predominant, right? There's been more conversation around it. Leaders at the federal sector, they're incorporating the guardrails and the safety mechanisms from a privacy perspective. Internally, organizations want to make sure that their intellectual property, their sensitive data is not exfiltrated out as part of using those AI tools like ChatGPT or whatever it is that they're using from a disclosure perspective. So it's critical right now.
So when it comes to guardrails, I know you said that a couple of times, and I liked what we did before. Where we were just like, well, let's back up and say, let's talk about it. So I wonder if you can give just any like concrete examples, whether it's when you're teaching or even just in your professional life. Like, what are some examples, concrete examples that you can give of AI guardrails that are being implemented, and you're saying like we absolutely need this. Any examples you could give would be good.
Or what's not being implemented,
or,
right?
Yeah, that's another one. Yeah.
So policies, right? I mean, you asked the question, okay, are you using AI? Oh yeah, we have GitHub Copilot. It's in place. All right, well, show me your policy. Well, we don't have a policy. What do you mean you don't have a policy? That's governance. Those are the guardrails, right? Do you have a steering group? Do you have a steering committee, a charter, right? That talks about AI, how AI is disseminated, how AI is enabled in the organization. If you don't have those, governance guardrails in place, it's everyone's going to be running around with their head cut off, right? I mean, literally, just any technology, just misuse, malintent, so insider threat, insider risk, and it's not done on purpose most of the time, right? It's just user error. But if they don't have those particular guardrails from a what to do, not what not to do perspective, they're just not going to understand and not going to know any better. AI is one of those new avenues that introduces new risk, introduces new technology into the environment.
So when you guys trying to define what is in and what is out, what will be the definition of, hey, this is under the AI and considered to be an AI use, and what is like outside of that?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, obviously you want to, whatever's in something that's been approved by leadership, right, that can help innovation, steam innovation, right, foster innovation, but at the same time, have a human in the loop, have that human validation of whatever that they're assessing, they're identifying, they're allocating to make sure there's some sort of real-time validation from that perspective. So that what goes in, and what gets out is just information that should not be disseminated. Like I mentioned, intellectual property, sensitive information, patient health information if you're in the healthcare sector, just sensitive data, confidential, restricted sort of information that cannot be out there in the ether through an AI-enabled resource.
Yeah. And usually, I think that kind of there is almost different buckets. There is kind of, hey, I'm a user that I'm just using OpenAI or ChatGPT or let's say Anthropic or one of those, or this is a system that we implemented that actually leveraging AI in order to do that, all the way to autonomous agents that have an identity, exactly, agentic system that can really run and do things.
And that's always good from an operational perspective. Think what 7AI is doing with cyber SOC as a service, or just cyber operators dealing with level 1 alerts that not necessarily have an actual analyst hands on keyboard and eyes on, but they can focus on the more robust, the more mundane problems that are a little bit more difficult to deal with. But like I said, having a good sanity check, having a good review and audit of a review that the autonomous AI alerting protocols and systems are doing the right things by the rules that were set out for that particular agent to be doing, and having just intermittent reviews or mid-year reviews, annual reviews, and then let the other more robust, more arduous tasks for analysts to actually get better cybersecurity security postures for their environment.
Yeah, this is fascinating. We see it a lot with we're like focusing on big enterprise, big organization, and very quickly, I think maybe the first implementation, nobody asked us anything about the AI, but immediately after, it's like, I think that right now there is a massive questionnaires, a massive kind of interest. And in many cases, there is, a group. Sometimes they have different different names, those groups, but that responsible to figure out like how exactly we're using AI and how it's implementing and influence.
Yeah, that's the explainability, right? The explainability AI model, which is massive, it's critical, right? And more regulators, more and more leaders are going to be asking how these models doing what it is that's said that they're doing, and how can you explain the methodology behind the actual model operation, right? And I mean, just look at 7AI, it's in the name, right? If they don't ask the question of what you're actually providing for them, it's it doesn't it's going to be something that's going to be a little bit weird, right? So it's important to understand what's actually happening, how you're accounting for that, and in moving the needle forward with being innovative, but also being secure on the back end.
Yeah. So when you guys are implementing internally in your company, and you are basically speaking with many organizations and in the university, what do you see? Kind of, what is the level of adoption, and how fast people kind of understand it?
I mean, from the higher education perspective, it's slowly trickling, right? It's definitely hasn't been, received to the level of enterprises and, FIs and Fortune 50, Fortune 100 companies. But it makes sense, right? I mean, government moves at a snail's pace, right? From a federal side all the way down. Same thing in the state government. Universities are usually state funded organizations with little to no resources or very little resources for new programs, and then they have to also deal with the accreditation boards like SACS, the accreditation body, and those regulators from that perspective. So they're slowly building programs. STC, South Texas College, which I'm affiliated with, they're building kind of like a symposium convenient partnership, like an MOU with a 4-year college in Houston. So if the students want to continue their education for a 4-year program, they can continue their AI studies at that school, right? So more and more colleges are implementing AI programs. UTSA has a College of AI and Science, Data Science, Cybersecurity Engineering that's getting off the ground here in the next year. So, I mean, more and more schools are more being innovative. But like I said, we're still a long way away to catch up to, organizations like an Anthropic, a Google or Alphabet, and those companies that are leading the way in AI, adoptions in the environment. Yeah.
So, now that I'm thinking about it, it seems like a lot of this could be really like compliance driven, right? So, for example, I'm a Fortune 100 and I have PHI, or I have, any kind of data that like obviously is up to like a PCI standard or something like that. It's just really obvious. But then, when you're thinking about standing up like an AI governance practice at something that isn't just like very large company driven by compliance, have to do it anyway. How do you see people getting started, and how do you advise people like this is where you start? Because you can't boil the ocean. You can't say let's do everything, but like what are the basics to like try to stand up this function or this kind of
First
program?
of all, you need to have leadership buy-in, right? You need to have the leadership buy-in. You need to have those conversations internally. Ask the questions. What's our game plan for AI? Do we have something in the roadmap? And if we do, what technologies do we have availability to? Usually everyone thinks Microsoft, right? The Microsoft suite of products, Copilot, Entra, right? And Azure, if you're in the cloud, right? And they're piggybacking off of that because they already have those deals from a licensing perspective to use AI, to use those technologies. So have those conversations with those teams operationally, but also at the leadership level. And then what's the game plan, right? What are we going to be doing with the AI? And then you start there. And then, like I mentioned, build out policies, build out documentation, build out SOPs, standard operating procedures, process maps, L1, L2, L3 process maps from a technology perspective to kind of look from the outside looking in like a 3,000-foot view of what's actually happening, so you can be well-rounded and not have any gaps, right? Because you have gaps, that's when you start talking about shadow AI, shadow IT, people just going off the rails and doing things that the enterprise as a whole is not really aware of, and that's where you start getting to big problems about like I said, regulatory, pressures, right? Data, PCI data, PHI, PII being exfiltrated, being disseminated through those AI systems that, they should not be doing or not have permission to do.
It almost feels like we're now, when we're talking about AI governance and this is kind of like another chance to do things right. And what I mean by that is there's a million examples out there of things that we've done because compliance, right? So here's an example. Every cookie notice where you just have to click allow to even get through the screen. A lawyer somewhere like made this happen, and they said this is how we're going to do it, and it completely like it doesn't solve any of the problems at all, but you do it anyway. And now everyone, like, I'd love to quantify how much it costs for how many times people have to click that one thing across the world on a given day. But anyway, putting that aside, what can we learn this time around that we've gotten wrong in the past when it comes to compliance, when it comes to governance, to a point where we're not just creating a bunch of checkbox for the sake of checkboxes and actually doing something that makes sense and matters?
It's a great question. I mean, try to eliminate silos and cookie cutter approaches, right? I mean, to the technologies that you're enabling, but privacy, right? I think privacy is like where the rubber meets the road, and that's where you start seeing all these, people fine print, click here. What exactly how your data being handled? If you have the full transparency, trust, right? Trust is going to be critical, and then is AI really taking into account who I am as a person, where, my demographic, my ethnicity, my particular data points, and then you start realizing that it's a bigger picture. There's a bigger thing at play to help avoid those pitfalls of cookie cutter and just things that we've seen that we just don't think are efficient and effective in helping organizations do work, and people just understanding the product better and what they're actually visiting a website to do and work through.
You mentioned TikTok. It will be fascinating to hear your take on the fact that now TikTok is part of a U.S. company, basically Oracle.
80% of it, yeah.
But not 100%. So it will be fascinating to hear your point of view about kind of this merger and.
I mean, I think they really need to solidify the security angle, right? And for example, if it's just more technical and administrative portion of the Chinese dance bite company owning the TikTok and what exactly they're doing from that ownership stake perspective, and if they're going to have any say so from the operational perspective, and what their game plan is to deal with potential data perspective, right? I mean, that's the whole thing, right? They don't want China and nation states in that area of the world to have free reign on users, and all the users are using TikTok in the United States. If they can able to show that and delineate that's actually being safeguarded in an effective and efficient manner, I think they're going to be all right. It's more money, it's more business dealings than anything else, but you got to show that, you got to prove that, and I think it's going to be interesting to see that once that relationship actually starts and gets off the ground, because the Capitol Hill is going to want to see examples of that actually in practice, not just don't take our word for it. I mean, that sort of thing, just believe us, that sort of thing. But I mean, Oracle does have a really good security team. I mean, they're massive enterprise function from an IT side, and they're all in on their Oracle cloud platform, right? So I'm guessing they're going to be doing all their adjudication of security controls and standards through that environment.
So we ask this question to everyone that comes on the podcast. So I want to ask you the magic wand
about the
question.
25% time?
That's the one. So if I could come out here, wave a magic wand, and give you back 25% of your time, what would you do with it?
Mentoring, developing talent, right? I think, I mean, you all hear the talent shortage in cybersecurity. You get numbers thrown around. We don't know what the exact number is. So if there's a chance to give back and mentor and develop that talent, that you can actually have people in seats in cybersecurity roles, whether in the private sector or public sector in San Antonio, get them through the clearance process of approvals to work for the government. We just need to have that advocacy, to have that mentorship, and help, build our pipeline, because we're outmanned and outgunned, right? I mean, from Russia, from China, just the things that you're seeing from those folks. And it only takes them right to be once. We have to be right all the time from a defensive perspective and posture. So try to just advocate for the profession, expanding those programs, right? Expanding the workforce education through school, through internships, through externships, right? And just focus on strategic initiatives. So if I had the time to get away from the keyboard or just ramen everyday operational work, that's what I would probably focus on.
So basically what he told you, that he's going to work more.
Right, of course. Yeah. That's always the answer. Yeah. What's interesting to me too is when you're thinking about AI in education, I think the first thing your mind goes to, and we've even had a guest today talking about, my daughter wrote her paper with ChatGPT, right? And so I think, that's where your mind initially goes. But I think to your point earlier, when you're saying we need more people to get into cybersecurity, and you're talking about teaching the next generation of cybersecurity professionals, what role does AI play in your mind on getting them upskilled, getting them to the point where, they don't need 5 years of hands-on keyboard experience just to get the basics? How has this changed the equation of, getting someone that has no experience whatsoever, now interested, but also skilled enough to be able to make a difference and to change that workforce for the numbers that we need?
I think it's changed the game. I mean, you can literally, not to talk bad about 4-year educational programs, but there's also other options, and there's so many different organizations like a Google, like an EY, that drop their 4-year curriculum requirements because they know that through the advent of AI, through the advent of just self-learning, self-training on how to do things like just how to write FYIs and do it yourself from YouTube, training, Hack the Box, Try Hack Me, just different operating environments for people to actually understand cybersecurity. So there's many ways to come in come to the table, right? So with AI, it can really speed up someone's, educational, knowledge without having to go through a 4-year program or a 2-year program, if that's the decision they make. Obviously, a 2-year, a college program is always going to be, a college degree is always going to be really important. Sometimes organizations are still very old school in that sense when it comes to their applicant tracking systems or their requirements for roles, right? And they still have to have those degrees or that education. But AI sped up the entire process tenfold for them to understand what they need to do or what's their why, what's their purpose, what they really are interested in to have a career in the space of cybersecurity.
So in your mind, is it cheating or not using ChatGPT or whatever?
See, that's a very interesting question. It depends, right? But like you said, the two major use cases for AI, one of them, number one, plagiarism, cheating, right? The other two is romance scams and romance dating. So we're not talking about that side, but so I tell my students, use it to help you, but don't use it to just be lazy and not do anything, right? So it's gotta come right in the middle. You kind of have to balance it out, and it can get tricky, right? Because if they're not doing it right, it's gonna get flagged for AI, and I'm gonna have to give them a 0, and we're gonna have a conversation. So, and that goes for everything, right? For people that are in the field now, that are thinking of, it's gonna take my job. No, learn how to embrace it and use it to your advantage instead of being worried about taking your job. Learn how to use it, have that AI baseline level of literacy to move forward. So, that also applies to education as well.
We've talked to several different guests that have a different piece of this perspective, right? We've got one that said, I told my niece she should get into cybersecurity, and 2 years later, I said, maybe you shouldn't, maybe you should do something else because AI is going to change that. And then we've got other people that are saying, it's really, really difficult to get into the entry-level positions because they're all being taken by AI, so that won't happen. And then we've got yet others that say, no. This is actually the greatest opportunity ever to be able to upskill yourself and to see things differently. And I just can't imagine, being in school right now, trying to make that decision with all these conflicting thoughts around this unknown future of this Wild West thing that's called AI. So I guess as you're talking to students that are thinking about coming into this field that is so up in the air and so dynamic, what's the feeling you get from them on this, and how do you advise them?
It's definitely all over the map, but it's also, all those three scenarios are happening all the time, right? And they tell you about them. So the way I see it is you have to just find your why, find what you're passionate about, because you want to be doing something you're excited about on a day-to-day. So if that's what you want to do, from cybersecurity, IT, find an angle, right? You might not necessarily start in cyber right away, but you start working at a help desk, right? Or I did like media delivery, right? Projectors and all that. That's how I started. And then I ended up talking to the IT guys and ended up working at the help desk and then ended up in cyber, right? So that's how you start at school or, doing things, work study programs, anything like that. So you got to actually be active and go all in if that's what you want to do. But if you feel like that's not really the place for you, that's not your why, that you're not passionate about, maybe you want to pivot to do something else, right? But it's very challenging, right? And there's moving pieces, moving targets. The goalposts are moving daily when it comes to that. So I just tell my students, just find your why and see it through, execute, and don't go half bake into it. Fully bake it out, right? And work through it.
Yeah, so I had a funny conversation with somebody in my family is study a computer science degree right now. And he was like, okay, I'm focused on C, C++, I know how to write. And I'm kind of, maybe attach yourself to something that it's more AI, agentic, and so on. But it's like when I was done with this advice, I was like, I don't know what is the right advice.
I just had that question, right? So I tell them, if they're really passionate about development and coding, stick with it, right? But now help learn how to integrate AI into the CI/CD pipeline. How to shift left and work through tools like Wiz or Sneak or anything like that it's using AI already to, capture that information, and they can still find their why. They can still develop, they can still coding, but using AI to enable them, their profession, if that's what they want to end up doing. Because we need coders. I mean, we're still
Yeah.
going to need developers, even though a lot of the AI is doing all that kind of legwork for them or for those developers.
Yeah, so that's another interesting, like treading the
Yeah.
where is the line between
Correct.
I need to understand code, but not necessary to.
Yeah, you can vibe code your way through a
Exactly.
lot of different things, right? So, and that's the beauty of it too.
And
Like,
this is today.
this is
not
today.
Talking about 5 years from now.
yeah, yeah. So what's happening today is going to be different in 5 years as far as the, how that looks like.
So you contributed to the CCSK certification. What is that? And then also, I think the bigger, other than that specific certification exam that just went live, do you think that it's possible, or do you think it's even makes sense? Should certifications evolve to keep pace with AI? Is that a thing that is like, it's a relic of the past? We've got to do things a new way. Like, I'm trying to understand that, because you can see somebody's bookshelf where they have a CISSP book that's about this fat, that when you're looking at it now, you're like, boy, is that going to be obsolete if we're talking about things in the world of AI. So I'd like to hear just kind of your thoughts around that.
Well, that's actually happening now, right? I was part of the SACA beta exam for the IASM. So it's basically the advanced certificate in information, cybersecurity, and AI, right? So that's a new flagship certification. They have one for auditors as well. So that's actually happening, right?
Yeah.
So they're building with the times. They're stepping up certifications. The IAPP has the AIGP, so the AI governance professional certification. There's a lot of pushback. There's been a lot of pushback in the last month that some of the material there is not really encapsulating of what AI governance is. So depending on where you're at and what side of the fence you're on, you might not necessarily go for that certification. But IAPP is the flagship privacy certifications in the space, right? So yes, I mean, and going back to CSCSK, everyone talks about certifications. It is a business, right? You do have to put in money into that every year. It's continuing education credits. These are pretty cool. They're from the Cloud Security Alliance, and basically it's a one-time set it and forget it. So this is Cloud Security Knowledge Certificate, right? And then they have the CCKA, so the Cloud Security Knowledge Audit Certificate. You pass it, it's yours forever, right? You don't have to worry about upkeeping it through CPEs or anything like that. So those are pretty cool. It's very agnostic. It's not based on AWS or GCP or Azure. It's a cloud agnostic cloud, relatable security, initiatives and objectives. So it's always good things to tell my students, this is an easy win. Go study it. You'll have it. It's yours forever. But to your point, there's a lot of certifications that are coming up, like the AISM and the AIA, that is going to be right there, synonymous and in parallel with AI and AI enablement. And like my current leader and my role currently, I work for a healthcare organization, Fortune 10 healthcare organization. She basically told me, if we don't get a certification in the AI space, we're going to be left behind, because you need to have something to show that you have the level of efficacy and effectiveness in the space of AI, right? So, and security.
So if we're going to fast forward 5 years, and by the way, the world is going to look so different in 5 years, it's really hard to even imagine what that's going to be like. But anyway, let's say we can. So if we get AI governance right, what does that intersection of risk, of compliance, and security operations look like? So do you think, will the GRC function even be recognizable?
It has to be recognized, right? So fast forward 5 years, you want to make sure that it's integrating into your daily operations. It's synonymous with just checking your email, right? For example, understanding what the risk profile is, understanding the risk averseness of that particular thing that you're interfacing with, you're assessing, right? So incorporating, so we talked about shit left from a development application security perspective. GRC is the same. As soon as you start identifying an asset, it starts there, right? What's the risk profile? What will help you do to protect that asset from a risk perspective, from a governance perspective? What standards are applicable to that particular asset? What policies are going to be in flight for that, right? So you do your own internal security assessment in your head, and you're already like ahead of the game, right? So having those AI-driven insights, guided decision-making, that's all kind of autonomously happening, through the day-to-day for that organization, and they should be like that all over the map, right? I mean, that's what I feel GRC is going to go. And right now, the big thing is GRC engineering. Have you heard that? Like, everyone talks about GRC engineering. I don't know if that's actually going to be the next big thing in GRC, but they're using that particular, way of thinking of, being an engineering mindset into GRC operations, which normally don't get seen like that. All right, GRC sees more like mundane, check the box. Oh, here we go. Like here come the auditors and that sort of thing. But that just really just turns it upside down in its head and moves from an engineer architect perspective as it relates to governance, risk, and compliance.
So now we're going to get into rapid fire lightning round. Okay, so here goes. Number one, most overrated cybersecurity trend right now.
Chasing every buzzword with strategy. I mean, I'm not buzzwords, right? AI this, AI that, Explangle AI, agentic AI, and then people start thinking about, okay, well, what does that even mean from a strategic perspective? So that's definitely overrated.
So is that what you said with buzzword without strategy? Yeah, it's okay. I like
Buzzword without.
I mean, that's that's great. Okay. One regulation or compliance requirement you'd eliminate today if you could.
Any outdated or redundant regulation, right? So anything that's outdated, that's deprecated, or that's going to be in the space of being deprecated to the new use of AI should probably not even be accounted for and taken into account.
Okay. AI tool or capability you're most excited about.
Any explainable AI tool that's going to make transparency in the forefront, right? So you got to be transparent, have that customer trust, have that confidence. If any tools that's available that can do that or claim to do that, I'm all in.
Best career advice you've ever received.
Always keep learning and mentoring up, right? That's how you continue to learn, self-learn, and you're helping the environment, you're helping the profession, and you're also learning at the same time.
Okay. So when we were at Black Hat, we did this thing where we said, all right, if you weren't in cybersecurity, you weren't in governance, you weren't whatever, and you could imagine yourself in an alternate reality with an alternate career, something completely different, what would that be? And so the way we think of it is, like the example I always give, Lior is a DJ on the cover of Rolling Stone. We had someone that wanted to be a charter boat captain on Camp Salad, right? So you got all these examples. What would you be doing? What's the cover of the magazine? What is that?
Well, I love electronic music. I was a promoter, right? So, I mean, I'm really big into electronic music. So, name it the DJ, Tiesto, Harbin. I know them. I know their agents and all that. So, my dream would be to be working in that space, right? But obviously, in the real world perspective, teaching, community development work. But anything that had to do with just loving music and being in the music space would be right there with what I stand for and what I love.
Oh, well, hey, this was so much fun. Really appreciate having you here. And where can people find you?
So I'm on LinkedIn, so connect with me on LinkedIn. And then, higher at risk. I have magazine article for some 2025. I am on a speaking circuit, so I spoke at the B-Sides. Look at B-Sides. There's some good conferences happening. I think B-Side Dallas is happening in November, end of year. So just keep tabs on my LinkedIn. That's where I start, talking about events that I'm attending or speaking at, or just want people to just know about in Texas. And then obviously, hopefully I'll get to go to RSA, Black Hat, DevCon next year.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
All episodes of Do Human Work are available at 7ai.com/podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Please share, subscribe, and if you have suggestions for future guests, let us know at dohumanwork@7ai.com.